China Watch Radio is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitol Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum!
Hao 同志们，我们在汪汪烈烈的站起来，站起来。Ladies and gentlemen, the people of the Middle Kingdom have once again stood up to a tyrant government. And Emperor Xi Jinping appears to be backing down from his zero-COVID totalitarianism. That leads us to the question of the week, which is, did Xi Jinping back down soon enough and far enough to save the Chinese Communist Party? Welcome to the December 8th edition of the China Watch radio program. Holy smokes, the year's almost gone, Billy.
It sure is.
And Jaunty, too. What do you think about that deal? Jaunty?
Not
much you can think about it. It is what it is, and away we go, right?
Sure.
There we go. Away we go. Yes. Well, here we are. We're going to be talking about what happened in China this past week and what it might portend for those of us who live here on the Central Coast and throughout the United States. What China does has an impact on the world because there's so many Chinese. 1.4 billion people there.
That's a lot of folks, actually.
It's a lot of folks. You know, that's roughly, almost 5 times as many people that live here in the United States on roughly 1/5 the arable land.
Yeah, not the total land, but the arable land.
The arable land, yeah. So
well, it makes a difference.
It's a real together kind of country when you think a lot of bumping butts, as it were, in China. So today we're off to the races. Let's see. I'll be starting off talking about what's happening to the manufacturing industry in China, which is really quite extraordinary. Billy, what do you have on the docket?
Well, I'll be talking about some changes in the COVID rules that China's been operating under.
They're backing down, huh?
You know, it's very interesting what they're doing. We'll talk about it in a minute, but yeah.
Good. Jaunty?
Well, one of the ways to sort of figure out what's going on in modern warfare is to count artillery shells. And I find it really it has been for, a century or so.
Right.
But I want to talk a little bit about how Germany relies on China for a crucial item to produce artillery themselves.
Wow. And, of course, some of those artillery shells are probably going into the Ukraine to shoot at the Russians, who are the Chinese allies. So that'll be an interesting conversation. Well, let's start it off with manufacturing. As we all know, the United States has proudly chased away its industry because it's dirty. And then they run down to the box store and buy made in China because it's cheap. And all of that made in China comes across the Great Pond on ships. But things are looking down over there. U.S. manufacturing, this is according to the CNBC. U.S. manufacturing orders in China are down 40% in what a logistics manager described to CNBC as an unrelenting demand collapse. 40% down.
That's a large number.
That's huge. Huge.
Wow.
Asia-based shipping firm HLS recently told clients it is a very bad time for the shipping industry. Chinese factories are shutting down 2 weeks earlier than usual ahead of the Chinese New Year. And as the Federal Reserve and other central banks around the world are attempting to fight inflation by raising interest rates, cooling the economy, there is a significant risk that a slowdown in demand can turn into a recession in China. Now, when you lose 40% of your factory jobs, 40%.
Wow.
That's huge. And let's see, this is pretty interesting too. Shipping is down 21%.
See, that's really big.
Yep.
That one's really big.
21%.
You guys have to be a little careful, though. There's a little bit of how to lie with statistics going on.
Oh, we
here.
never
I'll let you
lie with
continue, but maybe you can give me a word on that.
Yes.
We would never lie about statistics.
Here's your statistics quote, Jaunty. Lies, damn lies, and statistics. That's how we lie. So let's see. This is another piece here from Axios. It's pretty interesting. And it puts on the table Apple Inc. Who else, right? Global, and the title of it is Global Manufacturing Center of Gravity is moving away from China. And of course, that's how China got rich.
Yep. Was
by sucking in everything and manufacturing it up into stuff and shipping it back out into the world. And everybody went and opened up a factory in China, but it's turning around here. And driving the news, Apple has accelerated plans to move some of its production outside of China as its business is being hurt by stringent COVID policies, according to the Wall Street Journal. Now, we all remember seeing video of the Foxconn factory in China and the rioting and the COVID lockdowns.
The suicide nets?
The suicide nets, just incredible. A small portion of Apple's newest iPhones is already being made in India, where the share could grow to 25% by 2025. So they're trying to get moved out.
But production is so bad at the factories in China that they can't meet the iPhone, the current level iPhone demand.
That's right.
And people are buying the phones but not getting them.
That's right. And can't make them.
They can't make them fast enough.
Now, imagine if you're a manufacturer or a business like Apple, and you're sitting on orders for a gazillion iPhones.
That's right.
And you can't get them made because you're making them in China at the one place, at one factory, that Foxconn factory.
And you know this, and every car manufacturer knows this. If you get into a problem on an assembly line, often the product that does get made is not that good.
Right.
The quality control goes way down.
And imagine your product is being made by virtual prisoners.
Yeah, unhappy people.
Very, very unhappy people who have been locked in a dorm cell for...
Fed improperly, not given enough rest, the whole... You can name all that stuff, and you know what's going to happen to the product.
You know, I was once working for NBC, and one of my producers told about a union guy he was interviewed in Detroit, and how the union guy, who was angry at one of the manufacturers, figured out how to put a bolt inside of a door frame.
And the car would rattle forever.
Yeah, the car would rattle forever, yeah. So if you get an iPhone here in the next few years that rattles, and that you might know why. So China's also been losing ground in manufacturing other goods as well. The country's share of global exports of furniture, footwear, and clothing accessories has fallen since 2016. Meanwhile, trade between the U.S. and the EU has risen sharply. And analysts say Mexico and Vietnam as countries that could benefit the most from the diversifying supply chains.
Yeah, and you know, from a U.S. consumer, I would rather help Mexico.
And I'd rather help Vietnam, too, tell you the truth.
Yes, absolutely.
And in spite of the fact that I love Chinese people and the people of China, I just can't handle that CCP business. So beyond the China's government's, beyond all of this is China's unpredictable stance on COVID, on politics, on the demographic collapse, and on the internal politics of China. So if you're a businessman or businesswoman and you've got a manufacturing plant in China, you're looking to get out.
So let's give Jonty a chance to react to the numbers we talked about early.
Yeah, well, and one of the things with percentage increases and percentage declines is that if you have 100 of something and then you have a 50% decline, and then shortly thereafter you have a 50% increase, you're actually down 25%. And I'm seeing a little bit of that here. Look, I mean, I welcome the news that there's nearshoring and reshoring going on. I think it's fantastic. But what happened over the course of the past couple of years is that there was a dramatic explosion in the amount of
During COVID.
product coming
Yeah.
out of China.
Sure.
So they've got a little chart in here, and they're putting the number, the current number somewhere in the order of what is it? 2 million TEU. It's like a measure of the volume
I
of
think
of
20
containers.
foot units.
Yeah.
And you can just look back over to most of 2019 is about where we are now. So
Yeah.
we've sort of come back down from an obscene amount of products coming out of China to the already significant amount of products coming out of China a couple years ago. So it's good news, but it helps to look at the actual numbers and not just the dramatic percentage decrease.
Take the numbers with a grain of salt.
That said, if you own the Apple company, would you be thinking about hightailing it out of China?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I would.
Absolutely, I would.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be thinking about hightailing it off the planet Earth if I owned Apple.
But there's a downside to that too. If Apple turns its back on China
Yeah.
and manufactures in Vietnam, for example, what is China going to say about access to the Chinese marketplace of 1.4 billion people?
Well, then again, Apple has already played ball with China, the government of China, and turned off, key features of the iPhone anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, let's see. Who's up next, Billy?
That would be me. I want to talk a little bit about COVID. Now, we've heard all the draconian ways that China has dealt with the COVID-19 virus. And basically what they said is, we're just going to lock you down, no matter what. If you get anywhere close to anybody with COVID,
Zero COVID.
Zero tolerance. Yeah, okay. So anyway, China has now scrapped some of its most controversial COVID rules, which is very interesting. I say a little too late, a little too often, but anyway, this is a significant step toward lightening up access in the country. So, for instance, one of the things they did was they scrapped QR codes, which I find somewhat interesting. The clearest and most significant.
Wait a minute. Why would they scrap QR codes?
Well, I'll tell you. Because early in the pandemic, China had used health codes to track individuals' health status on mobile phones. The color of the codes, red, amber, and green, we've talked about this for months now in this program, decides whether users can leave their homes, go to public transport, go into a building, all sorts of stuff like that. Well, under the guidelines released yesterday, Wednesday, people will be allowed to enter most places without showing a negative test result or their health code. That's a significant step for nearly 3 years of disruption to people's daily routines and livelihoods.
So the QR codes then are the health codes.
Right.
Okay.
Now, there are some exceptions. They will still require the checks, including nursing homes, medical institutions, and secondary schools. Secondary schools, I think, being the big one. Mm-hmm. But businesses can now determine their own prevention and control policies according to the new rules.
It seems to be a significant relenting.
Well, here's the other part that I find very significant. Another massive change. Asymptomatic COVID patients, for those of you who live in Rio Linda, that's people who don't show any signs of having COVID. Asymptomatic COVID patients, or those with just very mild symptoms, will be allowed to quarantine at home instead of going to the government quarantine facility. That's a big step, actually. And I think that goes along with the fact that their phone didn't turn red.
There you go.
Okay?
Do you? Yeah, go ahead.
So patients whose conditions deteriorate will be, of course, transferred to the government quarantine facility. In other words, if you feel a little sick and you're staying at home, and then you suddenly feel really bad, you're going to the quarantine center, which is not unlike what we would do here. You'd go to the hospital, where everybody wears rubber gloves and masks and put you in a room where you don't talk to anybody else.
I'm not sure the quarantine centers are a place to recover.
No, absolutely not. They're
I
not.
never could figure that out. How you put everybody that's sick or nearly sick
in one place.
In one place, and everybody's going to get really sick, and then
So they're limiting lockdown. New guidelines also urge authorities to ensure the normal functioning of society. Whatever that means.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah. Lockdowns are only allowed in high-risk areas, and even then should be promptly lifted if no new cases are found for 5 consecutive days. This seems like somebody...
I give...
Yeah. Somebody said...
Xi Jinping is saying, I give, okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it sounds like to me. It sounds like somebody went to Xi Jinping and said, hey, boss, this is what's going on, perhaps.
Well, in thinking about the health codes, the QR codes, as you call them, and seeing the video of the street demonstrations going on, they must have had 100 million people to arrest.
Well, like I said in last week's program, I said, look, the Chinese population so farly outnumbers the police that if they all protested at once, or a significant number of them came out to the streets, there's not enough policemen in the whole country.
Nope.
When you got 1.5 billion people.
And it was really interesting to see the crowds subsume the Dabais.
Yeah.
Now
Now
that was, whoa.
Here's the best part of this, and then I'll stop. Travel. Ready? The rules make domestic travel within China easier. Much easier. Cross-regional travelers no longer need to provide a negative test result or their health code to travel inside China. Now think about that one for a minute.
China's about a month and a half away from their New Year's celebration.
That's right.
Correct. That beautiful observation. I was going to point that out. Here's the thing. Culturally, the New Year celebration is really, really important to them. So if
it's like our Christmas holiday.
Yeah, if you restrict travel and you can't go celebrate with your family who live in another province, boy, you get 500,000 people, 500 million people mad out of 1.2.
That's reminiscent of when COVID first came out. What did the Chinese government do? It locked down everybody except Westerners. Right?
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Go home to your country.
Yeah, exactly.
Spread the good news.
So the final note I'll make on this is this. Perhaps reflecting public concern. Here's the understatement of the century, folks. Perhaps reflecting public concern that the relaxation in rules could cause a surge in cases, residents have rushed to drugstores with reports last week that cold and fever medicines were disappearing off the shelves in China. They're trying to medicate in advance.
Yeah.
Which, look, I think Xi Jinping got the message.
Yeah. Well, I would suspect so.
Yeah.
And I would suspect that the collapse in manufacturing would help them get the message, too. Because where are they going to make money now?
Exactly.
Tough one. So do you think that with their new freedom, the COVID will spread? This is going to be very interesting, because if it does spread, Xi Jinping will be somewhat vindicated. See, I was protecting you from this epidemic. But if it doesn't spread, or if it's no big deal, then Xi Jinping is really going to be in the doghouse because of all he has put the people through.
Well, yeah, you're right about that, but let me put it on another perspective. Let me ask you the rhetorical question. Do you think Xi Jinping really cares? I mean, really?
I don't think you're right about that. One of the things that the past couple of years have taught us is that our governments included can go into a situation, regardless of what the facts actually are, and just tell you the opposite. And you'll often get a majority of the population to follow along, let alone, within the ultra censored world of Chinese authoritarianism.
Well, that's a good observation. I hadn't thought of that. But in all honesty, I don't think they're going to see a huge jump. I really don't. Because I think, like here, people have been infecting themselves quietly, not having too many symptoms. I think it's been going on in China.
You can't absolutely agree, Billy. I think that they're sort of pretending like they stopped everybody from getting exposed, but they've actually had a significant amount of exposure, as one would expect.
Sure. Well, because look at all the number of people they have in one country.
Yeah, there you go. There are a lot of bumping butts.
That's right.
So when all those bumping butts get sick, and it wasn't that big of a deal.
And I'm not telling my neighbor I don't feel good. I'm just going to go pretend like everything's okay.
Yeah, I'm going to hide out over here.
Yeah.
So
I don't think they're going to see a significant, huge increase. A few people will turn up more than normal, but I don't think it's going to be outstanding.
Yes, and like I said, what will people think of Xi Jinping?
Yeah.
You stiffed us. You stiffed us. You locked us up. You made us eat bugs. You
quarantined us,
Yes.
Not nice person.
I haven't been able to see my mother.
Or grandmother or
grandmother.
Kids. Well, we talked about this on our program a while back. We talked about a staff member's family member who was locked down
in China,
in China with her husband and her 2 kids, to the point where after a while she got a little loopy because she'd been locked down so long, not allowed to go out, go see some fresh air, look at the butterflies, nothing like that. She stuck in the house.
Yeah. I'm a little skeptical as to whether all of those COVID facilities, those quarantine facilities, would just go untended at this point. It seems to me that if you
build it, they will come.
Yeah, I mean, it's objectively the largest prison system that's ever been built, most likely, and
absolutely,
it's just not going to get used. So
no, they'll use it for something else. They'll use it for something else.
Right.
And they will. Exactly. Do you think they will stop using the health codes? I don't think so.
Well, they're saying they would. Look, I can only go by what's been reported by the government. I mean, that's the story I've got.
Do you believe the government?
I don't believe. Well, look, there's a phrase that comes to mind when you ask that.
It's time to take a break.
We're here from the government, and we're here to help.
There you go.
Remember that phrase?
Yeah.
Do you believe that phrase?
Yes. They're here to help. They have good intentions.
Okay.
And all of our money, too. They have all of our money, and they have good intentions.
We'll be right back.
Satisfy your hunger right now with the delicious ramen and sushi you'll find waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
Hi, this is Sharon.
And Ron from the Bay Briar Shop. Your longevity dealers at 3015 Porter Street in Soquel. 475-1751.
Get your longevity products for you and your children. Don't forget the pets. We have Orthodex in bulk. Free shipping and delivery also. 831-475-1751.
What's with the free shipping?
You said to give them free shipping.
You took a new job in Texas. No problem. Store your stuff at Anbar Self Storage and U-Haul. Easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard by the airport. 24-hour security. Spring cleaning special. First month free. Store it at Anbar Self Storage and U-Haul in Freedom. Clean it out, pack it up, and drive it right to your door at Anbar Self Storage and U-Haul. Easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard by the airport. 24-hour security, 24/7 access. Spring cleaning special. First month free. Store it at Anbar Self Storage and U-Haul in Freedom.
Well, folks, the sun sets mighty early these days. That means we're all spending a lot more time indoors, watching TV, surfing the net, working out in the shop, in general, using up a lot of electricity. So let's ask Chris Jensen from JM Electric what all our indoor time portends for the electrical circuits behind our walls.
You are right, Charlie. We do spend a lot more time indoors in winter. And the more time we spend indoors, the more load we put on the electrical circuits that run throughout our homes. It's really important that our electrical circuits are up to carrying winter's load, because if they are not, well, every year thousands are injured or killed by home electrical fires.
How can we know if our electrical circuits are up to carrying the load, Chris?
First, folks can go to jmelectric.com and take the home electrical safety test. After they answer 12 simple yes or no questions, they will have a good idea about how safe they should feel. Second, folks can call JM Electric at 422-7819 and ask for a free current safe home assessment.
And be sure and tell them Charlie sent you.
Hey everyone, it's MZ with an exciting update on our KSCO nighttime broadcast signal. We're back! So, come sundown, you no longer will have to switch to Comey or any of our online streaming channels to enjoy the broadcasts of your favorite radio station. But you know, the clarity and quality of our KSCO sound is actually much better on our app or any of our online streams through TuneIn, KSCO.com, or many other sources. Oh, and don't forget our 3 FM translator frequencies, 104.1 FM, 95.7 FM, or 107.9 FM. You can listen on those crystal clear frequencies all day and all night long. Yep, we make it easy for you to catch us after dark because we love you. Woman wait a lighter. Yes, this is China Watch Radio, and we are talking about what's cooking in China right now. And a lot of it seems to be focused on the efforts of Xi Jinping to mellow the folks out. You know, people got a little uptight when I locked them in their bedrooms for 16 months in a row. And
with their children.
And
their husband.
And fed them cockroaches. They got angry with me. I didn't know what the deal is.
I don't know why.
I'll back down a little bit and send them some boxed chocolates or something.
Turn off their phone.
Well, the question is, did Xi Jinping back down soon enough and far enough to save the Chinese Communist Party? Don't know. We'll have to see, but that is the question. And I'll bet that's the question a lot of CCP people are thinking about as well, especially seeing the sights of the crowds beating up the Dabais with sticks.
Yeah.
That was
that was pretty wild.
And when it gets right down to it, what do you think of the Dabais as a symbolism of fascism? They just look like the marshmallow people.
The Michelin Man.
Yeah.
That's what they remind me of.
Marshmallow people.
Yeah.
What a symbol for authoritarianism. Oh, gee whiz.
It reminds me of the last scene in the movie Ghostbusters.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Oh, well. Jonty, you're up. Carry us away to Germany.
I can't wait for this story.
Well, I mean, I'm really just looking for an excuse to talk about artillery.
Yes,
of course.
We love we're boys. We love artillery.
So there was an article in Nikkei out of Japan that's talking about how Germany's struggling to meet their procurement goals with regards to artillery shells, because a key component for the propelling charges comes from China. It's actually it's sort of a textile product. It's called a cotton linter. All of Europe relies on China to provide these cotton linters for their artillery manufacture.
Oh man, that's
So
scary.
wait a minute. Is it like a pad that they put?
It's wadding.
Wadding, yeah. Put behind the bullet itself
Yeah.
in front of the cotton or
It's
the charge.
it's a sealant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not some high-tech thing at all. And, I'm sure you could source it from somewhere else, but it really is clown world here when you've got Russia and China creating stronger and stronger economic and military ties. They're doing military exercises together all over the Pacific. And at the same time, China is supplying a critical component for the Europeans to build ammunition to send to Ukraine to fire at the Russians. So, I mean, what the heck's going on here?
You know, this shortage is a little bit like the diaper shortage we're having here. You could probably use diapers in the artilleries to replace the cotton. Except we're having a diaper shortage and can't get enough of those.
Right. I imagine our president's having a diaper shortage as well. At any rate, I don't mean to be mean. I just want to throw out a couple interesting numbers here because it sort of shows how war has changed over the past, 70 years. So what the U.S. is really darn good at creating a military that can roll over countries like Iraq or Libya. But we haven't really been doing the math in terms of what it is to have a contemporary high-intensity war. I kind of feel like the Russian Federation, on the other hand, has spent the last decade or so spending a tenth of what the U.S. spends on their military, but they've been trying to prepare for a high-intensity land war in Europe. That's their shtick, right? So we've got the situation going on in the Ukraine right now. The best numbers I can find on this is that the Russian army is using about 20 to 60,000 rounds per day. It's 60,000 if there's something going on. It's 20,000 if there's not really much happening. The United States is hoping to scale up our ammunition production so that we'll be able to, by this spring, produce 20,000 rounds in a month. Very excited that by 2025, the U.S. will be able to produce 40,000 rounds in a month. So we're talking about producing in a month what Russia is currently using in a day. Just to give you an idea of how sort of offset the demand for artillery is compared to the supply. The U.S. has, since the beginning of the special operation last February, sent about 1 million rounds of howitzer ammunition to the Ukraine. You figure all the rest of Europe has been doing something similar. The Russian Federation has used at least 7 million of their own stockpile, which, if you think it's 7 million rounds over the course of what's not yet a year, it's about 11 months or 10 months, something. So I just want to provide a little perspective here. We used to mobilize. You would mobilize all of the manpower to join the army, but you'd also mobilize industry. Just to give some perspective here, in the First World War, the Battle of the Somme, in the week leading up to the battle, the UK fired 1.5 million shells. So about 214,000 or so per day. We are so far away from that sort of model of industrial warfare at this point in time that the U.S. is excited to be able to provide a whopping 40,000 rounds a month by the spring of 2025.
Now, can I ask a question here? Mm-hmm. Is the reason we are so far down on the number of shells we're using that we're far more accurate in what we aim at?
No, not really. There are some really interesting munitions like the Excalibur rounds, which are they're like a guided munition. And then there's some really extra long range rounds, but that makes up a very small percentage of the total number. And incidentally, speculation is with regards to Germany, that if Germany were to enter into any sort of high intensity conflict, they would be out of ammunition in days, or some people think hours.
Well, one thing that has captured my attention with respect to Ukraine in some of the videos I've seen, two things actually. One, a drone footage of a Ukraine farm field revealed 100 million divots from artillery rounds fired into it. It's just incredibly pockmarked. Every 3 feet there was a round that hit. And the other was a number of Russian tanks that have been destroyed and abandoned throughout the Ukraine countryside. Whatever Ukraine is using on tanks is working. There was video of a bunch of abandoned tanks, and the Ukraine army came upon them, and one of them was still running. Just sitting there running. So it's a weird place over there.
Yeah.
Tough.
Still, though, his numbers are somewhat disturbing.
Yeah.
That we're that far behind. That the Western countries are that far behind.
Well, like Jonty said, Russia's been preparing for a blitzkrieg war through the Fulda Gap into Germany and sweep through the lowlands there. And
let me ask you this, Jonty. Back in the day, in the World War II days, when we got bombed, the United States went, well, let's turn these Ford factories in. We'll build some airplanes and we'll crank out a bunch of ships. And do you think the government is prepared to crank up ammunition production if we really have to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question, and a lot of generals will come in, and there's sort of the military blogosphere, I should put it that way. It's retired generals and other folks, and half the time they're on Raytheon's paycheck or whatever, and they will opine about how we're desperately short in terms of our ability to manufacture the quantities of munitions required to persist in any sort of contemporary high-intensity conflict. So what happens when or if China does invade Taiwan? And one of the most sort of telling things that happens is everybody fires their missiles, and then nobody has any missiles. And then you have to wait, 3 months for the next Tomahawk to come out the assembly line. So it really is kind of an interesting way to look at the sort of actual strength of forces. Like you might have some folks manning a missile battery on Guam somewhere or something like that, but as soon as they run out, that's it. They're just sitting on a rock after that. They can't. Yeah. They're sort of non-participants. So
well, it's why I asked the question, because when I lived out there back in the tail end of the Vietnam War, you would not believe the amount of ordnance that was going from the harbor to the airplanes to drop on Hanoi. I mean, it was 24 hours a day, semi after semi after semi after semi, nonstop. And so I know we're capable of building warheads and bullets and ammunition and all that. I'm just wondering how long it'll take the United States to get back to that level if we need to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting sort of question, and I think it sits in the same sort of realm as, we used to know how to go to the moon. I guess we're about to attempt it again.
Oh, that's a good example, man.
You had all the people together who all knew how to send a rocket to the moon, and they all retired or passed away or something like that, and then you want to do it again, and you have to start from zero figuring out how to make it happen.
You know what? That's a very, very, very good point. That's a very good point. Wish I'd thought of that. Oh, well. Well, there you go. So we went from the COVID protocol in China changing
and we're back to China.
Now we're back to China,
which interestingly enough has been building up its military and has been building its armaments up and has been making new artillery rounds. Yeah, exactly. And in light of the new Xi Jinping regime, that seems to be a focal point of their interest these days. But speaking of Xi Jinping, he made sure to pay particular honor to his predecessor, Jiang Zemin, and they had a big ceremony for his passing, and Xi Jinping spoke for a good full hour at that ceremony, praising Xi Jinping as being a good communist, and having made sound decisions in shooting up Tiananmen Square and killing a bunch of Chinese protesters, during what Xi Jinping called a particularly rough political time, as they are going through right now. But interesting also is that Xi Jinping is paying homage to Xi Jinping's faction and the people who followed him, which principally were the kind of the westernized Chinese who lived on the east coast of China, along the manufacturing area there.
The ones who bought Harleys?
The ones who bought Harleys, yes, those. Because they were, all of that wealth was really made possible by Xi Jinping willingness to do business and opening up China and say, let's make some money and have some fun. As long as I'm making most of it, I'm okay. And so with the closing of that ethos, with the chasing away of the Chinese oligarchs, which are the key of to me, the oligarchs have become the key characters of everything. And no matter what the regime, whether they're communists or capitalists, it doesn't matter. It's always the oligarchs who are pulling the strings for the politicians.
What a jaded view.
What a jaded view, I know. But so when Xi Jinping turned on the oligarchs,
boy did he.
And boy did he. All of a sudden, there's no oligarchs there pulling the strings.
Yeah, Jack Ma.
Yeah.
He's the example.
Exactly. So he made special effort to pay homage to Xi Jinping or Jiang Zemin and his faction. Thank you for doing a great job. We loved you, even though I kicked your ass out of the office. And the interesting thing about it is that Jiang Zemin was the one who handpicked Xi Jinping to be his successor.
Which is why he got lip service at the end.
But
I still remember the escorting of him out of the.
No, that wasn't Jiang Zemin.
No.
Hu Jintao.
Yes, but it was indicative.
Jiang Zemin wasn't even there.
Yeah, it was indicative of, hey, you boys are done now.
You boys are out of here. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how Xi Jinping, turns the ship of state around and heads the other way. We've been watching this process now for about a half a year, which makes it relatively new. Steering away from making money, from doing business with the West, and taking charge, and so it's going to be interesting to see what the people do.
Yeah,
and to see whether Xi Jinping's loosening of his COVID restrictions will actually.
The one I'm wondering about,
for him.
And the one I want to ask Jonty about is this. What do you think about the next big problem he's going to have to deal with is feeding the country?
We should do a whole show on that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've discussed that in the past.
Yeah, but it's coming back to roost him now.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been hearing a lot of buzz about that. I kind of feel like our media gets really excited about a story, and then the story just kind of fizzles one way or another.
Sure.
We were reporting on all the grain silos going up in flames, likely because of corrupt officials were moving grain and selling it, what they weren't supposed to be doing. And then we have also talked about how China can produce about 80% of the food that it needs. And so then it has to acquire that food from elsewhere, the remainder.
Well, that's why I brought it up, because I feel like, okay, he's gotten through the coronation ceremony, what everybody lovingly calls the election. It wasn't an election, it was a coronation, as we know. But now the next thing I think he's going to have to deal with in a very public way is the idea that China really can't feed itself.
Well, China now has a very close relationship with the largest grain exporter in the world, that being Russia. I'm not too worried about them being able to feed themselves at this juncture. We've had different thoughts about that.
That's why I asked you, because you pay very close attention to some of this stuff that gets by me.
My guess is between much more cozy relationships with various South American countries and with Russia, I think China is not in the worst shape with regards to feeding itself.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I guess I'm up next, right?
That's right.
Okay. So here it is. China's president is going to take a visit. He's going to get on his equivalent of Air Force One.
I think it's 747.
Yeah, I think it is a 747 actually. And he's going to fly to where? Where's he going to go? He's going to go to, are you ready?
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
He's there. I think he landed this morning.
Yes, he did. He did land this morning. So here's the thing. Why do you suppose that Xi Jinping is going to Saudi Arabia? Do you think he wants to go see the remains of the soccer stadium? I don't think so. He's going there to sign the world's top crude oil importer trade agreements. I'm sure that's what he's going to do. They're going to talk Turkey about oil. Xi is expected to travel to Saudi Arabia. Well, he's there, of course, now. He'll be there from today until Friday. The Saudi press agency reported today that the Chinese president will hold meetings with top rulers, including the king and the crown prince, and they will take part in a summit for cooperation and development. Now, that's some sort of code for we're going to talk what Saudi Arabia has the most of. We're going to talk about that resource, and that is oil. China is the world's largest importer of oil and a major customer of the Saudi Arabian version of oil, the crude oil. The kingdom has deepened its ties in recent years, including in the energy sector with China. So there's not really much else to say about this except that if I were a world leader somewhere else, like in the United States or Great Britain or France or Australia, particularly Australia, I would be somewhat concerned about this little junket that Xi Jinping is taking. It would concern me a lot.
What caused the tiff between Biden and the Sauds?
The tiff?
Yeah. John, do you remember that?
I mean, there's layers to it.
Yeah, I was going to say there's
some of it was mentioning the situation in Yemen,
right,
as opposed to ignoring it. Some of it's the Khashoggi thing.
That's right. That's a big part of it too.
But I always saw that as, so you've got a guy who's a journalist, but he's also most likely a sort of intelligence asset. So spies do have a tendency to get killed, and it was made
as
a huge
journalists.
Oh, that's true. That's true. It was made a huge big deal of over here in the U.S., and I saw that as kind of a public relations effort so that our government could explain why we might negotiate in a more tough way with Saudi Arabia. It's because of the Khashoggi thing. I mean, I think if you looked up number of people that the House of Fouad is knocked off over the years, he's hardly the only one, but he got disproportionate coverage in the West.
Part of this too, I think, goes back to 9/11. I think, remember when the story came out that members of the Saudi family that happened to be in the United States were flown out. They were given special airspace to get the hell out of Dodge. Remember all that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the current president has forgotten that.
Well, I also think that there is a strategic alignment from between the Democrat Party and Iran and the Republican Party and Saudi Arabia. And it's the, one faction of Muslims and the other faction of Muslims. And for some reason, one of our political parties likes one and the other one likes the other one. And it seems to me like there's a lot of that going on, too.
That's a very astute observation, Michael.
Sure is.
I'm sure some of our listeners recall the Iran-Contra scandal. There was this individual named Ghabanifar over there in Iran. There were Iranian elites who were making all kinds of back-channel deals happen. And I don't think that's ended. Also, it seems like Europe likes it when there's some kind of deal going with Iran. It's I think France benefits from oil sales coming out of Iran in particular, and so there's economic interests behind it as well.
No doubt about that at all.
Yep.
Yep. So that's I just think it's very interesting that Xi Jinping is going to take a little trip. I wonder if he's going to take the wife and the kids. Probably irrelevant.
I think actually we should talk about this sometime. But I believe he has one daughter, and I believe she actually resides in the U.S.
I think you're right.
That would be interesting to research and expose. I find that very interesting.
Although he has been photographed with a wifely-like woman.
Figure, yeah. Probably three times less his age.
Well, no, she seems to be a
contemporary.
Contemporary, yeah. So I don't know who she was. She didn't exactly, wear feather boas or anything like that.
Nice little business suit sort of attire.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So lots of things happening in China, and it seems to be bubbling quite well with activity on the political front, both domestically and in foreign. But it also seems to be in a pretty severe state of trouble, of turmoil.
Yeah.
Both economically, both financially, both in the housing industry, but as you brought up earlier, also out in the fields where they grow their food.
That's right.
And in terms of weather, they've been going through incredible, weird weather over there.
Not unlike us.
There you go. The video I saw of Shanghai with the great Yangtze River, mud puddles.
Yeah.
In the middle of Shanghai.
Yep.
I thought, whoa.
Yeah. Well,
during the peak of the flood season,
yeah.
no less.
Yeah.
So something really weird is going on over there.
And I've often over the years read about the construction techniques they use in China. And you worry about those dams.
Tofu drag project? Yeah.
You worry. You worry about, there's not enough steel in this dam
and
here.
The steel that is there is more
Ain't
like
that good.
Spaghetti.
Yeah. I don't know.
So when we come back, we're going to have open lines for everybody. And all you have to do is pick up your phone and dial 831-479-1080. The subject is China and us. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that Xi Jinping backed down soon enough and far enough to save the Chinese Communist Party? Or do you think the CCP is toast?
This is China Watch Radio. You're listening to AM 1080, KSCO Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey. Don't forget, ChinaWatchRadio.com. Jonty's put a lot of work into putting all of the stuff we're talking about on the website so you can check it out.
There's a small craft advisory in effect until about 5 minutes from now, and a gale watch will be in effect from Saturday morning through Saturday afternoon. Voters forecast for tonight: south winds 10 to 15 knots, wind waves 3 to 4 feet, west swell 2 to 3 feet at 14 seconds. The time now, 6 minutes after 3 p.m., and that means it's time for the second hour of China Watch Radio.
Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitola Mall food court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum!
John Lai, ladies and gentlemen, the people of the Middle Kingdom have stood up with white pieces of blank paper. They held them between their hands and they stuck them in the face of the Dabai, and those pieces of paper said absolutely nothing, but everybody knows what it meant.
Oh, they said everything.
They said everything by saying nothing.
Yep.
And they sat there and they smiled at the Dabais, and then when the Dabais wouldn't back down, they took out some sticks and it's like beating the marshmallow people with sticks. Incredible images of the Chinese, the latest Chinese white paper revolution.
You know, I hate to say this. I don't want to make light of the situation, but you know, when I saw the guys with the sticks and the giant marshmallow people, the only thing I thought that was missing were the graham crackers and the
and the Hershey bars.
And the Hershey bars. Oh,
Yeah,
I probably
it's a
shouldn't have said that.
Pretty crazy. Yeah, it's probably dangerous. But at any rate, the revolution is on over there. Xi Jinping did back down quite a bit from what you described, Billy, earlier in the show.
Yeah.
And turning the people loose. And it'll be interesting to see what happens to them then. So this is the second hour of China Watch Radio, which means it's your hour. All you have to do to join us is pick up your phone and call 831-479-1080, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. Before we go there, of course, we're going to pick up Jonty, who has a really great story about the mysterious gold buyer.
Well, this is it's kind of like half a story. It's not really a full story. I wish I had a little more time on this, but it's tantalizing nonetheless. So there's an article on Zero Hedge that's reporting, I'll just tell you the title, China confirms it is mystery massive gold buyer with first official purchase in 3 years. Now, China's a little weird about buying gold. They don't really always tell the rest of the world what they're doing, only occasionally. So in 2015, China came out and mentioned, oh, by the way, guys, over the last little while here, we've increased our gold reserves by about 50%. And that sent some shockwaves through the markets. Again, in 2019, they reported the amount of gold that they had, and it had indeed increased again. Now we're talking about central bank gold reserves is what we're talking about. If you want to know what country in the world has the most gold, it's surprisingly it's India, where your average citizen is more likely to own some gold jewelry.
Because they don't trust money, right? So
well, their currency's been digitalized, so there's a whole discussion there.
Okay.
But just to give people some perspective, the United States has about 8,000 tons of gold reserves. Germany has about 3,000. Italy, France, and Russia, a little over 2,000. While China officially announced that they had 1,980 tons as of September 2019. So China's actually, less than Italy, France, or Russia. At least they were. But over the course of the past business year, something kind of weird's been happening. There's just been a massive uptick in the amount of gold that's being acquired. Now, I'm not really sure how it is that you can know exactly how much gold has been bought and not know who bought it. See what I mean by it's sort of half a story? But this is according to the World Gold Council. So according to them, this year has been seen the most tons of gold acquired by central banks than any year all the way back to 1967. Now, back in during the Cold War in the 50s and 60s, both the U.S. and Russia had somewhere in the order of over 20,000 tons in reserves. So that there's obviously been a massive drawdown if Russia is sitting at 2,000 now and the U.S. is at 8. Gold
Can I ask a stupid question? Because I
sure.
really have to know. I'm inquiring minds. We want to know. Is there like a finite amount of gold that's currently on the market, or are we digging up more, or are we buying and selling among countries? How's that work?
Yes. All of the above.
Yes, there is still quite a bit of gold being mined in South Africa, Russia, Indonesia. There is still gold mining going on. It's not the glory days, and people aren't usually tripping over a nugget or anything like that. It has to be refined at all. But there is still a fair bit being produced, and if I was better prepared, I'd tell you exactly how much. At any rate, this last quarter has seen 399 tons of gold purchased. Turkey, Uzbekistan, and India bought 31 tons, 26 tons, and 17 tons, respectively. That leaves about 300 tons being purchased by the mystery buyer. Now, according to again Japan's Nikkei, they're reporting. They're essentially saying this is China. We can tell. We did the math and we figured out that this is China. So if China is going from about 2,000 to about 2,300, and that's just in this last quarter. The thing is, we don't really know where they are. They haven't told us what they've bought over the last 3 years. It hasn't been since 2019. We don't really know how much gold they're stockpiling, but we do know the reason. And the reason is that they're looking at the situation with Russia and they're going, wow, you get in a conflict with the West and all this paper money they'll just steal it. They'll just take it. Essentially the West, all of Russia's reserves that were held in any Western country was just sort of acquired. They're now even the EU's talking about using that money to support the Ukraine. So China's looking at that situation and going, well, that's no good. If we get in trouble, we're under threat of losing. I think they usually float something like 4 trillion in foreign reserves. So China's looking at a future. They're looking at how do we keep the value of whatever it is, our trade deficit or whatnot. How do we stay afloat into the future? And it does seem that we're heading towards this idea. We're going away from the petrodollar, and we're heading to the what people are calling, I think, petrogold. It leans on that concept that Putin floated at the BRICS meeting about a basket of commodities being the way to establish value. It does look like China's making some serious moves to acquire more of the most traditionally valuable commodity on the earth.
Mm-hmm. That basket of commodities reminds me of the progressive farmers of the 1920s who put forth the notion of parity for their crops. So it's kind of like a basket of commodities is worth this, and everything.
That's a good comparison, by the way.
Yeah, everything else is measured on that.
Yep. Stuff we can use. Got to eat. Yep. Well, that's interesting.
It's better than, It's better than FTX's bitcoins or digital currency.
Right, no kidding. That is the other thing, though, that China could lean on. They could, in order to escape the sort of Western monetary system, the post-Bretton Woods monetary system, would be cryptocurrency. But they seem to be pretty well against that. I think it's they banned Bitcoin mining in mainland China a couple of years ago.
And part of that was based on the fact that it uses such a tremendous amount of electricity.
Each Bitcoin computer would need a whole coal-burning power plant to run it.
Yeah, exactly.
So how are we doing with our phone calls?
Well, we have two.
Anybody call?
Yes,
we're at 831-479-1980.
We have a couple of phone calls on the line. Let's start with Kenny from Watsonville. He called in first. Kenny, you're on China Watch Radio.
Is China reopening too late to stop the collapse?
Yes.
No, definitely not. They're not opening too late because this is a temporary thing. They're gonna do the tourniquet approach. They're gonna tighten things down. Then now they're gonna release them temporarily, just allow enough blood to flow back and calm everybody down for a little while. But fear is a powerful motivator, and their fear can be given in several ways. Businesses are still allowed to keep restrictions in place or put restrictions back in place. So the CCP can lean on those businesses and either threaten or bribe them to put the restrictions in place wherever they need to. All their monitoring, all the government's monitoring of the population is continuing. They know who everybody is, where they are, pretty much what they're saying. So also on the easing of travel restrictions, China can easily manipulate testing data. So right after this big event of the January and February celebrations, all of a sudden this spike of COVID, oh my gosh, it came back. And it doesn't matter if it really does or not, because they don't report the truth regardless. So they have complete control over that, and they can either do that or not. You know, they have complete control. So like I say, fear is very, very powerful, and I don't think this is going to, I think this will do somewhat slow the collapse, if nothing else. Now, having said that, I want to bring one more thing up, if I might.
Okay.
Just the ABC principle that I've been touting on your program over the last however long you've been on it, which is, you know, when you buy something anywhere but China, ABC. And I have successfully bought clothing, appliances, a lot of things from countries like India, Italy, Vietnam, Germany, Turkey, Cambodia, Spain, Pakistan, and clothing from all over the place, Malaysia, Indonesia. And you can go online and find out where things are made. There's also a host of websites. One that I go to frequently is called allamericanmade.com. And the reason I bring it up again here is, first of all, your audience would be sympathetic and maybe, participate in this program. But also, I'd love it if you could put some kind of article on ChinaWatchRadio.com to tout, buying anywhere but China. I don't know if you'd be willing to do that, but I think it would be very helpful. And the last thing I wanted to say was, I hope that no matter what happens with KSCO Radio, that China Watch Radio will stay at least on the internet. Is that going to happen?
Well, we'll see what's going to happen. It's a very exciting time for KSCO Radio and all the staff and owners and everybody here. So the latest news is nobody knows anything.
That's exactly right.
Do sign up for our newsletter, though, if you can, because that's going
I already
to allow us
have.
to...
Yeah.
We'll keep you up to date there.
But Kenny,
I wish I would have waited so I could be in the contest for the
that's
Shenyang.
right. And we're going to have that contest today. So anybody who is listening would like to give a shot at winning four tickets to Shenyang in San Jose this coming holiday season, all you have to do is go to China Watch Radio and sign up
for the newsletter.
Register for the newsletter.
That automatically
signs you up to be to put your name in the hat.
Yeah.
And Jonty's got the hat there, and he's waiting for your registration so he can put it in there. And at the end of the show, we'll draw.
Kenny, thanks for the call. We're going to cut
Kenny,
you.
I have one more thing I wanted to say to Kenny, and he was talking about how, what it appears as though that the CCP is kind of laying a trap for the people.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1957, Chairman Mao famously put forth a "Let 100 Blossoms Bloom," which was to say, we want to hear as many opinions as we possibly can. So for a period of 6 weeks, he did this, let 100 blossoms bloom, 100 flowers bloom. And then when they did, what did he do?
He put pesticide on them.
Yeah, he hit them with pesticides and
Yeah.
wiped them all out. So, and Xi Jinping is a great fan of Chairman Mao. So what worked in the past may well work in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thanks, Kenny, for the call. We appreciate it. All right, let's move on.
831-479-1080.
Well, we had a call, and the other call dropped, and so we'll ask you to call back again if you
have
so
something
inclined. Please let us know at 479-1080 what you want to say regarding China and what we've been talking about today. I have to go back to the whole idea that we're munitions around the world are being controlled by what's going on in China with the wadding. I find that a fascinating story.
Yeah.
That that our armaments are
and
somewhat
diapers
dependent.
too, and diapers too. So it's really interesting that everything that we have come to rely on China for, the cheap everything, has been shut off essentially by COVID. And is COVID real or not? You know, it's hard to tell for us. We have COVID here. We've been living with it. They haven't been living with it. You know,
they haven't been living. See, that's a misnomer. I think they've been more affected than us.
Well,
I mean, when the government says you can't leave, you got, and I go back to the story only because it just makes me crazy when I think about it. Is the fact that they lock people down and killed their dogs in public and let it be filmed and sent around the world. This is how harsh we are.
And one of them was a corgi.
A corgi.
And that was the end of
China
for Bill Graff.
Yeah, that's right.
That was the last straw.
That was the
right
last
there.
straw right there, man. I'm not going. It's the last place in the world I want to ever visit. Honest to God. I just don't want to go there.
Well, I would love to go back, but not until they stop using all those coal-burning power plants.
Oh, because of the burning eyes you have?
Yeah, there's smut in the air.
One of our former morning show co-hosts with Rosie went to China, and he just talked about looking across the road. He was in Shanghai, by the way, and apparently the smog was so bad he couldn't see the building across the street.
Yeah, David Welch talks a lot about that too, and all the times he spent over there. Yuck.
Yeah. Boy.
So, and yet that smut. I mean, you know what my father used to say when he was taking the kids for a drive, and we'd drive by a refinery, and you'd smell that sulfur,
smoke.
And all of us kids would go, "Oh, gee whiz, it stinks, it stinks, it stinks." And my dad would sit behind the wheel of the car, and he'd say, "Kids, that's money you smell."
Yeah, he was right, but it wasn't any money we had.
Well, it occurs to me that when I was briefly in Beijing 2 decades ago, and the sun would rise at about 11 and set at about 3:30 because of the smoke in the air, that a good proportion of that is actually our pollution. It's our pollution offset. Those are our products being manufactured.
Right.
Well, he's right. Yeah.
And therein lies Michael Olson's greatest anger, is that we chased our industry away because it was dirty. And then we run down to the big box store and buy made in China because it's cheap.
Well, the one that gets me is along those same lines, but a little different. But the one that gets me is we have so abrogated our industrial ability that we could not today.
Can't get diapers.
Well, we couldn't also build the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
Not possible.
Yeah, if you can't get diapers, you can't build the Golden Gate Bridge. That's for sure.
Well, they can't. The way the steel was strung and made for the cables, it was put on long trains, and it was made in Bethlehem Steel or one of the other companies, and then railed to California, and that's how they got the long continuous. Well, you can't ship that kind of steel from China on a boat. It'll sink the boat. Wow. It's too much steel. So we literally can't build the Golden Gate Bridge again. It's not possible until we fire up the right steel plants here.
Well, that's Donald Trumpism. You can't build a strong country without steel. And
I often point to the fact that when we got bombed yesterday, I believe is the anniversary.
Yep.
Of Pearl Harbor.
7 December 1941.
When that happened, America, the titans of industry said, well, we can't do that to us. Henry Ford said, let's build some airplanes. And, Henry J. Kaiser said, let's build some ships. And, stuff like that happened.
Now, that's a real interesting thought, Billy, because what would the titans of our industry do
now?
Now, do you remember just recently we saw Tim Cook walking down an aisle in Washington, D.C., and a reporter asked him, what do you think about the riots going on in China? And what did Tim Cook say? Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Do you think we should be negotiating with China? Not a word. So what do you think he would do? Whose side would he take?
Well, look, when you look at it like that, you think all is lost, right? But then you look at another titan of industry who figured out how to launch a rocket in space.
Elon Musk.
Launch a rocket in space and then land the thing that got the thing into space back on the platform in the middle of the ocean standing up. And you go, okay, so we have the technology and the ability to do just about anything we feel like doing. And so it's theoretically possible for us, I believe, to crank up again and build whatever we need to build in times of crisis. I think we can do it as Americans. I really do.
I totally agree, Billy. It's there's no lack of technology or ability or imagination or will. The problem that we face is that the amount of will required to actually do something has gotten completely out of control. I was reading an article when was it? This morning, last night, I don't remember, that was talking about how there's a proposal to rebuild Union Station in D.C.
Yes.
And the reason why they want to rebuild Union Station is they want to dramatically upgrade its environmental footprint. You know, global warming is a crisis. It's the existential crisis of our generation. And so we have to do everything we can to try to limit our greenhouse gas footprint. And one of the things we can do is rebuild the Union Station. They've spent They've spent 7 years so far doing environmental assessments. And they're predicting that it will be completed, hopefully, if all goes well, by 2040.
What will be completed? The environmental assessments or the actual construction?
The actual building, if there's no more delays, and there's already delays, then it'll be completed by 2040. So it's a huge, big emergency. We have to do this now. Let's start with at least 7 years of environmental assessments, and then we'll just plan on being in the courts and filing papers until 2040. So it all doesn't really quite add up. And there's this sort of issue with, there's like a balance. On one hand, you have intelligence and creativity and productive impetus. On the other side of the scale, you just have sheer stupidity.
There you go.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Stupidity wins most often. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. This is China Watch Radio. Question on the table today: do you think that Xi Jinping backed down soon enough and far enough to save the Chinese Communist Party from itself? 831-479-1980. Pick up your phone and join us. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice-daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
Experience the extraordinary. Travel with Shen Yun to discover 5,000 years of wisdom, beauty, drama, and humor live on stage. You're not just watching a performance. You are witnessing a culture reborn. Come see what the modern world has never seen. The beauty and wonder of China before communism. Coming to San Francisco, San Jose, and Berkeley, starting on December 26th. Shenyun.com/CA. SHENYUN.com/CA.
Hurry into Mattress Firm's Black Friday sale. Get a king bed for the price of a queen or a queen for a twin and save up to $700. Plus, get a free adjustable base with qualifying Sealy purchase. Or shop Tempur-Pedic and save $500 on select adjustable mattress sets. Plus, get a $300 instant gift. Mattresses and bases are in stock for fast delivery. With our Love Your Mattress guarantee, get the lowest price and 120 nights to sleep on it. Only at Mattress Firm. Restrictions apply. See store or mattressfirm.com for details.
Hi, I'm Sam Quinton for Coast Paper and Supply. Their vast inventory of products includes janitorial and cleaning supplies, paper towels, toilet and facial tissue, boxes and shipping and packing supplies, and much more. One visit to Coast Paper and Supply and you'll know why businesses, schools, and households shop there. Coast Paper and Supply is at 151 Josephine Street in Santa Cruz. Open weekdays 8 to 4:30. Phone number 831-423-3350.
It's Locals Live! Saturday is 4 p.m. The hottest debates in Santa Cruz. How are our sports teams doing? What are we eating tonight? Where do we go? Jeff and Jake have it covered. The best of Santa Cruz, past and present. Sports, food, entertainment, callers and guests. If we feel like it, it may just be the best part of your week.
Hey everyone, it's MZ with an exciting update on our KSCO nighttime broadcast signal. We're back! So, come sundown, you no longer will have to switch to Comey or any of our online streaming channels to enjoy the broadcasts of your favorite radio station. But you know, the clarity and quality of our KSCO sound is actually much better on our app or any of our online streams through TuneIn, KSCO.com, or many other sources. Oh, and don't forget our 3 FM translator frequencies, 104.1 FM, 95.7 FM, or 107.9 FM. You can listen on those crystal clear frequencies all day and all night long. Yep, we make it easy for you to catch us after dark because we love you. Welcome back. This is China Watch Radio, and this is your hour. Please pick up your phone, dial 831-479-1080. And hey, also go to ChinaWatchRadio.com and register for the online newsletter, we send out every week.
I'd say also, hurry up if I were you.
Yeah, hurry up because we're going to give away a 4-pack of tickets to Shenyang in San Jose at the end of the show. And you could be a winner because John T's going to pick your name out of the hat, and away we go. You'll love Shenyang. If you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it, you will love it, and you will remember it forever because it's that good.
Well, you know, when you think about Chinese culture, you think about the difference between what's going on now under the Communist Party, and you think about how China was culturally before.
8,000 years of culture.
It's reflected very well in this particular production.
You know, somebody asked Susanna Yao, I think it was on KSCO, somebody called up and said, or no, Rosie asked Susanna, you know, is Shenyang a spiritual show? And Susanna was afraid to answer because people are, you know, reticent to talk about things that are spiritual these days. So, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the Chinese Communist Party is trying to smother out of the people.
Yeah. And, you know, there are 7, if I remember correctly, there are 7 Shenyang companies around the world.
Yeah.
And every year it's a completely different show.
Yeah. And it's a spectacular.
Yeah.
And every year the CCP does what it can
to stop it.
And
they can't.
So if you want to help stop the CCP, go to ChinaWatchRadio.com, register for the free newsletter, and you will be entered into the contest to win the tickets to Shenyang in San Jose, and you will love it for the rest of your life.
All right, let's go to the telephones. Mary is on the line if I push the right button. Mary, you're on China Watch Radio.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good
How
afternoon.
How are you doing?
So far, so good.
We're making it through.
Good. Listen, I'm missing David's levity and his jovial laughter. Tell him to come back.
Okay.
Soon.
He
And
does
so,
have a pretty good laugh, come to think of it.
Oh, my goodness. It's a pleasure to hear him on the radio. So, We're talking about China and if they've done enough, and can they come back and so on and so forth. China hasn't killed enough people yet. The Communist Chinese Party has not killed enough people yet. In fact, today I was reading about how they have 58 secret policing centers around the world in different countries, 2 of which were just discovered in Los Angeles, and I think another 2 in New York City. And
Mary, for those who do not know what a secret police station, a Chinese secret police station in the United States?
Oh my God, yes. The CCP has 58 of them that the world nations know about. 2 of which were discovered in Los Angeles, and 1 or 2 in New York. And so what they do is they target Chinese people and try to repatriate them, and if they don't comply, they kill them.
They killed them?
What?
Yes, they kill them. So
are you sure? I
Yeah.
mean, that's a pretty stark accusation there.
I've talked to enough Chinese people to know their fear of what's going on with the CCP. And if they dare to speak up against the CCP, their life may be very short.
Does that apply to radio hosts?
Yeah.
Well, are you Chinese nationals or are you...
No, but we talk an awful lot about China.
Of course you do.
And Los Angeles isn't that far away.
That's not a bad question, Billy. I mean, the reality is that if they're willing to do this to their own people, what will they do to others? I mean, frankly, we've looked at COVID-19 from all kinds of different angles, and I frankly have my own opinions. I think that between the pharmaceuticals and the Chinese Communist Party, there was definitely a conspiracy to target all kinds of people around the world. But I am saying to you right now, to answer your question, and then I'm going to hang up because you need to listen to other callers.
Or head to the bomb shelter.
China is not done. China's not done. They have not killed enough people. They have not owned enough of the world, and they will keep on rocking.
Thank you, Mary. Now we can't go to sleep tonight. Other than
Mary,
that,
thank you for the call. You always, when you call, we always get an insight into stuff we hadn't thought about.
And other phone callers, too.
Do you guys remember we actually reported on that some time ago? There was an expose on a house in Canada. I don't remember exactly where it was. They were calling it a Chinese police station. It was really more like a house where some operatives lived, and they would go out and make little visits to people that were saying or doing things that they didn't like, and they would say, your grandparents still live in Shanghai. Something bad could happen to them. Maybe you need to get on an airplane and go back home. So it is something that we have covered in the past. It also is something that pricks up my ears. I mean, I don't want to make light of what China's doing in that regard, but our own government's had its own little Department of Nasty Tricks that's been doing all sorts of things like that for some time. There were the notorious black sites and things like that during the height of the War on Terror.
You know, John T., I had an associate some time back who was raised in the Mormon faith and in Mormon family and ran away from the Mormon church. And he said, no matter where I'm at, they come knocking on the door once in a while and say, "Hi, we're here. How you doing? Everything okay?" And so it's kind of like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Come knocking at the door.
Kind of scary.
But that they do it here, and that we tolerate it and allow it to terrorize people in our country that are here legally. I don't think that is Oh, it should be allowed.
No, I don't think so either. That's not cool at all. Yeah. But I'm not. I wasn't being facetious or tongue in cheek at all when I asked the question of Mary what she thought about the fact that here we are talking about, we don't pull any punches on this program.
Yep.
And it's entirely possible maybe they're checking us out. Fortunately, I don't have a Chinese passport, but
I'm just looking back several months here. What was that? I don't know if you guys recall. What was that report we did on the folks who were? They were exposing some kind of hacking, I believe it was. I think it was like Chinese hacking affecting election systems or something.
Yes.
And when they were talking to the lower level FBI folks, they were very interested in getting to the bottom of the whole thing. And then one day they got a call, and they'd moved the case over to the DC FBI office, and the whole the whole sense of the thing had completely flipped over.
That's
and
right.
Instead, the FBI agents were saying, "We think you guys committed a crime. You're here exposing these Chinese hackers. We think you guys broke the law, and we're coming for you." That should be the FBI, right? That would be saying, well, the Chinese are running a influence or threat operation out of some house in L.A. We're not cool with that. It's got to be against the law in 8 different ways. So it's to have a functioning FBI to be able to put a stop to that sort of thing.
Well, it's interesting that remember who started the FBI and how he ran the thing in the first 20 years of the organization, and you wonder how the culture isn't the same.
Well, from what I've seen, it's pretty well the same. So.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had a phone call from someone down South Monterey County, and if that person wants to call back, somehow the phone call dropped. But if you want to call back and ask a question, we'll certainly take your phone call.
And in the interim, maybe they were smart enough to go to their computer and go to China Watch Radio and sign up for the free newsletter and put their hat in the ring
for the last minute drawing.
To Shen Yung.
Yeah, and by the way, this isn't. Look, we're giving somebody who organized this thing. I assume that was you or someone else smarter than me. Decided that we should give away family pack tickets.
Yes.
So you get to take people you care about.
And children,
you get to,
your friends,
or your grandparents, or
whatever, and make a real night of it down.
Go out to dinner or lunch ahead of time, and enjoy the show,
and have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. There's that call. So, also, Shen Yung is a very political statement,
but in a non-political way. That's what I like about it.
Yes, in a non-political way, but it's still very political because it was started by the people who were being persecuted by guess who? Jiang Zemin.
Yeah.
And the Falun Gong practitioners, the Falun Gong. And so they put this together as a way of, it's kind of like a white paper revolution in itself. Because it's not saying anything other than what China used to be.
I was wondering. You lost me for just a second there until you said white paper, and then you held up your hands, so you can't see them. The beauty of radio is sometimes you can see it and sometimes you can't.
You have to imagine. Michael Olson holding up his hands, and here's a blank space,
a blank piece of paper, white sheet of paper, and then you understand what he's talking about. Protest this.
Yes, exactly. The people dancing.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful spectacle.
Yeah, it's sort of the pound sand, go kick rocks presentation of this is how we're protesting today.
Well, it makes me want to post a YouTube video that's just a white screen.
Yes. All right, well, we've got some calls. Let's talk to Ross, who's called us from Aptos. Ross, you're on China Watch Radio.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Terrific.
Just right.
Great. It's a show, great show. My wife's from Shanghai. Been married about 20 years. She came over 2000, and her family lives there. So I got kind of an inside look at life
curious
in China
to know.
in many ways. Yeah, one of the weirdest things. There's two things. As far as secret police stations around killing people. That's not happening. Okay, I can guarantee that. But as far as what's very interesting to me and what people should really know is in China, most of the population lives in urban areas. You know,
Yes.
they are starting to grow out into make suburbs because that's the whole belt, you know, the belt thing that they're doing, belt roads,
Belt
creating
road.
highways and yeah, right. And
So what
you
you're
know,
saying
with
is that they're building these highways out into the sticks, and people are moving out along the highways.
just like in America,
Yeah,
just like
right.
we did here, same exact thing, you know. And so, but what's interesting about what's going over there, and we got to be very careful about, is, you know, because of high tech, they got cameras everywhere. They can make
Right.
cameras for $1 or $2. They have cameras everywhere, and they also have this really high-end facial recognition software.
Right.
You know, and so, and everybody in the urban areas basically is in the database, and they have facial recognitions, and they have a report card for each of these people. You understand?
Yeah.
A huge
Social credit system.
Right, a social credit systems. Now, I don't want to scare anybody, but we're starting to have hundreds of thousands of cameras and all. All you have to do is watch a police show on television, and they can find suspects because they got cameras everywhere in the cities and even the larger towns and townships and stuff in our country. You know.
Yes.
And the only thing that's different between us and China right now is that facial recognition algorithm and the report card that they keep on the Chinese people over there. So we got to be really careful, because although it's helped our crime industry and finding thieves and crooks and murderers and rapists and all this kind of stuff, it doesn't take too much to step over into that other area that China already exists in right now.
Yeah, Ross, let me follow that up, if I might, with
Sure.
I think it was the World Health Organization, one of those mucky muck organizations where all the elite gather in a room and figure out what to do with the world. But they decided that every person in the world should have a health registration.
Oh, that's the World Health Organization.
World Health Organization.
Well,
right.
that was the G20 nations,
G20,
and
yeah,
they're going to
okay.
do it through the WHO.
Okay, so it's a mucky muck organization working with a mucky muck organization, and they're going to ensure that everybody in the world has a health registration, a digital health passport. And that digital health passport is exactly what Billy was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Wherein everybody will have a QR code.
Same thing.
And that can be turned into red, green, or yellow. And that's how they can absolutely control everybody in the world.
And Ross makes a very good point when he talks about cameras being everywhere. You know where they have the highest density camera in the world? London. They have more cameras per square inch in London than any other place in the world. They can follow you literally anywhere in London.
Yes. They could have some.
Right,
Go ahead,
just
Ross.
like the internet, there's a lot of good that can come out of all that surveillance for crime and stuff, but it's a double-edged sword. And
absolutely.
You know, just as with the internet, there's so many good things about the internet. There's so many negative things, and part of our problem in America to this day is the internet, because of the division of people and confirmation bias and all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to point that out because China's even going more that way. The other thing that I kind of wanted to cover about China is China, if you look at the history, they abhor war. They don't like war at all. And that's why they want to build their huge armies and everything so no one will screw with them at all. They don't really ever want to declare war or be in a war. They might support a war, you know, but they're really against war. They think war is no good at all, and they really want to avoid it. And that's why, you know, they have their nuclear bombs and then their huge 1 million man army and all these kinds of things. And Africa is becoming quite an area where they're building schools and teaching Chinese and giving the little townships tons of money and getting them all baited and hooked on. And right now, a lot of these places in Africa, they're biting it and they're taking it, and they're taking the money and all the gold. They're doing all this gold buying.
That's right.
And they really want to get the resources of Africa. But I think there's going to be a big problem in Africa soon, because eventually these governments, the black governments and the African governments, they're going to reject the Chinese way of life, even though they're really kind of shoving it down their throats in return for money.
But if everybody has a health passport.
Hey, Ross, I got to ask you a question. Would your wife ever want to go back to China?
No.
That's okay. That's what I thought.
No, I mean, no, only to visit relatives and say, but she would never want to go back as far as living, and she much prefers the American way of life compared, as most Chinese that live here in America do. They much prefer living in America than in China, by far.
Yeah.
That's the general consensus for sure. There's no doubt about it. I grew up in Cupertino. There was maybe 10 Chinese people there. Now in Cupertino, it's like 80% Chinese. You know?
There you go.
There you go.
Hey, listen.
And they have their stores and everything like that. And I love the culture. I love the people. I love Shenyang. I love all that about China. I grew up going to Taiwan and Hong Kong. It's all, the culture's great. It's the government that we really got to watch
That's
out.
what we've
CCP.
always said on this program. We've said the exact same thing. It's not the Chinese people we're talking about. It's their government. Hey, thanks for the call.
That's
we
right.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Take it easy.
All right, Marcia in Los Gatos. Marcia, you're on.
Hello, guys. How you doing? We love hearing your voices, all of you. We miss David, and I just want to say we should be all so grateful. We should all be grateful to have watched the low-tech standing up of the Chinese people, showing the reality of their spirit, saying we don't like what's going on and we don't want to stand for it. We want to stand against it. So they stood up and they showed the, what you call the police over there, that they didn't like it and they had some way of fighting back. And we saw that the leader bowed down a bit and let his people not suffer so much. So we want to thank everybody all around the table, you guys, for having this program every week, and for us being able to watch the Chinese people stand up and get their chi and stand up there with their energy and show the world we will not take this, not like this anymore. So we should be grateful. So I thank you guys, and we will stand up ourselves to be grateful for our freedom. And we want freedom all over the world.
Amen. Amen. We want freedom for everybody.
Well said, Marcia. Thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Well, I cut her off. I didn't mean to do
Did you
that,
really?
Marcia. Well, I pushed the button. I'm sorry. It was
And
my
there's
fault.
the finger laying right there on the council.
Sorry about that, Marcia. We got.
Love you too, Marcia.
Yeah, the funny thing about this is I think most of the people who listen to this program and who follow what's going on in China understand that the people are being, I guess, oppressed is the best word.
It's a prison,
Yeah,
Billy.
it's a
China
giant
is a
giant prison. Yeah.
There's a warden, and there's a warden staff, and then there's guards, and then there's everybody else, and then a few visitors.
Yeah.
And, if you were to go there now as a visitor, I wonder what it would be like.
Well, it's funny because both Amy and some of the other people on our program over the years have talked about, the fantastic culture that's there.
Yeah.
You have everything from,
But you know what? One story Amy told that I'll never forget was going to the extraordinary, beautiful opera house in Shanghai to see a presentation like Shenyang, but without the spirit of Shenyang.
It was like
without
hollow
that,
tiger,
Yes, exactly.
It was hollow.
Nothing there. No spirit.
Yeah.
It was beauty without spirit.
Well, the one that got me was when we were told about the statue of Confucius that had been destroyed by the Chinese government, and then they went back to the dark room and they thought about it for a while and they went, wait a minute, we better go glue this thing back together and put it back up so that the tourists have something to look at. because
There's
that's what
nothing
they're.
else.
That's
well,
what they're.
the question of what is contemporary Chinese culture is, I think we'd have to give that a serious treatment. One of the things that I noticed when I was there was that the TV was 50% Three Kingdoms era docudramas.
Exactly.
It was all Chinese history. I mean, I'm sure it went through the CCP's filter to get rid of anything that might upset people. But it looks to me like a culture that's very much is still engrossed with its own history.
Exactly. Hey, listen, we're running out of time here. We gotta pull a winner up out of the
do you
hat.
have your hand in the hat, John T?
Oh, yeah. Beep, beep, boop, boop, beep, beep, beep. Okay, it looks like...
That's the worst imitation of a computer I've ever heard.
That was a highly randomized advanced system for selecting... Basically, I closed my eyes and clicked. It looks like Tim Carnal, email World Watchers International. That's an interesting email.
Tim
Carnal?
Tim Canale.
CAN.
Well, Tim, congratulations.
Canale. Probably Canale.
He has,
and World Watchers.
World Watchers International at Gmail. I guess he'll get an email from you, Olson. Did you get in touch with last time's winner? Fantastic!
Yeah, we got that worked out.
4 tickets to Shen Yun are now out the door to the upcoming performance.
Yeah, and speaking of out the door.
Yeah, we're almost there.
Yeah,
we're almost at the door.
We might be out the door too.
Well, if we're taking some Christmas time off, then next show might actually be our last.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the state of things here at KSCO. A highly uncertain future, but whatever the future is, we look forward to a brand new 2023.
Right.
And you know what? It's going to be a good year.
And sign up for our newsletter, because then we can keep in touch with you and keep you up to date on what's going on with the program. Who knows what's going to happen, but we want you to know about what's going to happen. So please, sign up for the newsletter and keep in touch, and we'll take it from there.
Right.
That's our program for this week. We want to thank you.
好同志们.
All right, John T., have a great rest of the week. We'll check in with you soon.
Will do.
All right, this is AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey. Flight 1080 is up next if they can gas the airplane up and get it on the runway.
I think